Good evening, everyone. This is a public meeting of the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals for December 10th, 2012. Before we start, I'd like to ask everyone if you plan on speaking on behalf of a petition, that you please write your name and address before addressing the board. Our first matter before us is a continuance. This is ZB 2012-45. The petition is a special permit. The applicant is Gina Tosconi Moore. The property is located at 685 Lawrence Street. The petition is to convert vacant warehouse space into a personal training facility pursuant to Article 12, Table of Uses of the zoning ordinance.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Good to
Members of
see
the
you
board.
again.
Nice to see you as well. I'm actually going to turn the floor over to Mr. Frawley first. I think that most of the concerns that you have before you would best be answered by him, and then I'll just run my spiel after he's
Great.
finished.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Hi, my name's Dave Frawley. I live in Andover Street in Tewksbury, Massachusetts.
Okay, thank you.
And I own the property on 685 Lawrence Street, the property that these people hopefully will be occupying soon to open their personal training operation. Well, just very few words to say is they're very delightful people to work with, and I wish them the best of success up on Lawrence Street. It's a very low-impact operation, so there shouldn't be any problem with the neighborhood or parking.
Okay.
Thank you very
Can
much.
I ask you a quick question while you're up there?
Yes, please.
So regarding the parking, exactly how many total spaces are available on the site?
We have 43
Yep.
spaces in the parking lot,
Yeah.
and there aren't more than 2 or 3 cars in the parking lot at any time, at this time. And we've reserved it for the development of the rest of the building, which is going to be 53 units in total, but we've sort of abandoned that because of the economy. We built 12, we sold 8, so everything else is on hold. Now all we're depending on now is rental income from the 5-story building. Okay. And the parking also in front of the location they're going to be at is where the Lowell Police Department and Department of Social Services used to use. It's the same building in the same location, and those parking spaces in front of the building are on a right of way. The city doesn't maintain it. We as neighbors, the wire company and myself, maintain plowing it and hot topping it and things of that nature. So there's an ample amount of parking for this operation. It's not a Gold's Gym, where I know they'd be concerned. It's a very low-profile operation from what I can see.
And are any of those 43 deeded out to any of the businesses there? In other words, are they 43 available to any
No,
of those
out of the
businesses?
43, there's one that's been deeded to, or allowed, I'm not sure what the language is, to one of the condo association owners, and who happens to be present tonight. And when we signed the purchase and sale, he told me his son was going to Iraq, and he wanted someplace to be able to put his car for a year. So we granted him that, and that's the only parking space that's designated for anyone.
Okay.
The condos, by the way, what about this, have the 2-car garages inside already, so that's been satisfied.
Okay.
They have a right to repass that parking lot, but they don't have a right to park there.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So before I address some of the specific discussion points that were present in the application itself, I just wanted to give you an overview of what CrossFit is, just so you know what you're looking at. As Mr. Frawley said, it's not a Gold's Gym. It's basically personal training in small group classes. So really, we don't ever anticipate having more than 15 people or so at any given point in time. Classes will be scheduled in the morning, afternoon, and 2 in the evening. So we're really looking at 4 hours a day to start, and eventually expanding, hopefully, if things are successful. The way that it works is that it's myself and another trainer who are there, and we're always on site. Both of us are certified, so that it's not like a come in and do as you please sort of a thing. It's highly programmed. The programming is all pretty individualized, and it's scalable so that anyone can come in, from someone who's trying to get their first push-up ever to someone who is training for an ultra marathon. And we'll run them through a very similar set of programming, but we'll make sure that everybody's kind of dialed in to where they need to be. So that's basically what CrossFit is. It's weightlifting, gymnastics, sprinting, that sort of stuff. High intensity, classes are an hour long. We don't do treadmills, we don't do ellipticals or anything like that. It's barbells and dumbbells and kettlebells and that kind of thing. As far as the permit application itself goes, the social, economic, or community needs that are met by the project, first and foremost, it's an empty warehouse space that is now going to be used as a business. So I've also already employed 2 local artists to paint murals on the interior walls. And the plan is to participate in national and local charity events. CrossFit's really heavy into Wounded Warrior Project and some specific breast cancer events as well. And we would certainly be looking to jump onto that. The other thing would be a creation of a local chapter of Steve's Club, which is a program that services underprivileged children. I'm certified in CrossFit Kids modality, and I also spent the last 8 years of my life prior to doing CrossFit full-time as a special needs teacher. So I would be looking also to develop a program that would help to give those kids an opportunity to participate in something that is decidedly more sedentary than some of the things that they have open to them now. As far as traffic flow and safety goes, as I mentioned, we're looking at maybe 15 people per class. There are 43 spaces that are available to us, so we're not even going to be looking at filling half of those at any given point. And really, the way that things trend in general in CrossFit is that the evening classes tend to fill up a little bit more than, say, like a morning or a noon time, when we really wouldn't have that many. So really, we wouldn't be taking up any sort of on-street parking or cause any problems with traffic flow. As far as neighborhood character goes, just adjacent to our facility, also in the traditional mixed-use district, is another mill that houses a Brazilian martial arts studio, a dance studio, and a karate studio. So we're kind of looking to fit right in with that active little corner of town right there. So no changes to the outside of the building proposed, with the exception of the installation of a sign, which was made by a friend of mine who's a local ironsmith, and the dimensions of that are just under 10.5 feet by 1.5 feet, and it's made of aluminum. No illumination or anything like that. And finally, really no impact on natural environment at all, because we're not doing any construction. We're not proposing anything, done to the outside of the building or the inside of the building. And the potential financial impact is only good. It's tax revenue. So that's where we're at the moment.
Okay. If I can just direct a question, Joe, just real quick to you. Dumpsters, I think there was some comment about a dumpster or dumpsters on site. Does that have any bearing on this business per se, or was the question more around, is there a dumpster on site and how will it be utilized?
It was more towards the latter, about whether a dumpster was on the site.
Yep.
There is one on the site. It's currently not screened. It should be screened. It wasn't necessarily relating to this business in particular.
Yep.
They're not going to really have any dumpster needs.
Yep.
Just more of a general question.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to ask at this point. I might ask Mr. Frawley that question
Sure.
later, but, okay. Anything else you'd like to add at this point?
Not all?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I misplaced my, oh, here it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeffrey Vance. I live at 27 Andrews Street. I'm a resident of the Red Mill Townhouses, which borders 685 Lawrence Street. On October 19, 2012, I received notification from this board of a public hearing to be held on November 15th at 6:30 p.m. As we all know, that's been continued until tonight. I am adamantly opposed to this petition being granted for the following reasons. One, I believe that the parking spaces in the parking lot behind our homes at the Red Mill Townhouses are already spoken for. I don't believe I am out of line when I state that we, or I, was sold my home being told that this parking lot was for the residents of the Red Mill Townhouses and our guests. I was also told that the mill next door was going to be converted into garden-style condominiums and that a parking garage was going to be constructed to accommodate those residents and their guests. Two, if this board approves this petition, they will in fact be assisting Mr. Farley in his efforts to bankrupt the trust at the Red Mill Townhouses. The easement that this city allowed to be put in place speaks of shared expenses of this parking lot. All of the parking lot expenses, plowing, lighting, etc., have fallen squarely on the shoulders of the residents of the Red Mill Townhouses. Mr. Farley has not paid one nickel of his share of these expenses, which I personally believe Mr. Farley intended from the very beginning. When Mr. Farley and his attorney wrote this easement and again presented it to the city for approval, they excluded language which would allow either party to sue for monies due when that party was in default, and the party in default paying legal fees. Yes, Red Mill could sue Mr. Farley for the money he owes the trust for his share of these parking lot expenses, but it would more than likely cost the trust more than it would collect. With this, I saw my condominium fees increase $40 last year, and I can look forward to seeing them increased again if this petition is approved. 3, Mr. Farley also had to file a petition with the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protections for an activities use limitation, an AUL, due to the fact that this parking lot is located over a hazardous waste area. Mr. Farley is currently in non-compliance with this AUL, which is more than apparent given its current state. This is not the first time. On March 2nd, 2012, the Department of Environmental Protections issued to Mr. Farley, as well as to the Mayor of Lowell and the Lowell Health Department, a notice of noncompliance of this AUL. Again, it is more than apparent that Mr. Farley has no intentions of meeting any of his obligations to any of the parties concerned, the residents of Red Mill, the city, and the Commonwealth. 4, the parking lot diagram, the site plan that is being presented is completely unpractical. The easement that has been allowed by the city is once again completely unpractical. If this proposed parking lot design is put into place, all the city will be doing is putting people in danger. You will have the residents of the Red Mill Townhouses trying to make a hard right turn into a garage door opening less than 96 inches wide with vehicles that are almost 94 inches wide. Then, once we do get these vehicles into our garages, where after time I'm sure there's going to be a considerable amount of damage to the cars as well as the door, we will have to back out of our garages blindly into a lane of traffic. I can say with a strong amount of confidence that there is nobody in this room tonight. Sorry, I lost my spot. I can say strongly and with confidence that nobody in this room tonight is more qualified than myself when it comes to parking vehicles in a confined area. My profession provides me with the skill of parking as many as 13 cars in an area less than 75 feet long, 108 inches wide, and less than 13 feet 6 inches high, with wheels underneath that 13 feet 6 inches. So believe me when I say the parking lot design is not only completely unpractical, it's also insane. 5, the driveway on the end of our building is designed for one-way traffic. I believe that the plan that was approved by the city called for this driveway to be dedicated to the traffic exiting the townhouse, with an entrance driveway being constructed on the other end of our building. If the petitioner is granted, the amount of traffic traveling both in and out of this driveway, our driveway, will become even more dangerous than it already is. I myself have almost been hit by a car as I was getting my mail out of my mailbox. A car that was driven by a non-resident of the Red Mill townhouses. 6, Mr. Foley has yet to meet his obligations to the homeowners of the Red Mill townhouses, as well as his obligations to this city. He went to great lengths to receive the permits he needed from this city to build this project. And Mr. Foley is on the record with all of the commitments he made to the city on how the finished product would appear. Once again, it is more than apparent Mr. Foley has absolutely no intentions of completing the project he began. 7, within the narrative presented to the city, the petitioner fails to state their intended hours of operation. They, in a very generalized manner, speak of being open Monday through Saturday with no classes being held on Sunday, a day in which most businesses of this type are generally open. They also speak of class sizes being no larger than 15 people, and classes being 1 hour in length. I believe the following statement within this narrative speaks volumes. Quote, there are currently plans for 4 to 6 classes of 1 hour of 1 hour in length, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and 1 to 2 hours on Saturday a.m., close quote. I believe the key word within this sentence is currently. I believe that once they are granted the approval they are seeking, they will be free to do as they like. Am I to believe that all of these estimates being presented by the petitioner tonight to be accurate, or are the numbers being presented tonight being presented in a manner that will appear less impactful? I am sorry, I don't believe these numbers to be accurate, and that once open for business, they will go forward doing whatever they choose. If they want or need, they will simply increase class sizes from 15 to 25 or more, and will do so 7 days a week. And who or what will be in place to stop them? Nothing. 8, Section 11.3.22, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading. I believe that the inconsistencies within this narrative, again, speaks volumes. The petitioner claims that there will be, quote, minimal impact on traffic, parking, or safety in the neighborhood as class sizes are intentionally limited to 15 or fewer people, quote, close quote. Currently, with the amount of traffic coming in and out of this area, I find the petitioner's claim to be unrealistic. 15 to 30 cars in and out, in and 15 to 30 cars out every hour on the hour, all of this taking place in our backyard, in the backyard of the residents at the Red Mill townhouses. Again, the driveway on the side of our building is designed for one-way traffic. Once again, I will remind this board of how I was almost hit in this driveway as I walked for my mail. The petitioner claims of minimal impact on traffic and parking is highly unlikely, even if we use the class membership number of 15. The amount of traffic and parking places needed to accommodate as few as 30 cars is not a minimal impact. It is a major traffic jam going on in our backyard 4 or 6 times a day. Am I to believe that this city approved the construction of the Red Mill townhouses without considering a parking area for the residents and their guests? 9, 11.3.2A, criteria for special permits in the table of uses. D, traffic, access, and safety. Again, the petitioner makes the unrealistic claim of only creating a, quote, minimal impact on traffic, parking, or safety in the neighborhood, close quote. Within this section of the narrative, they now claim that Mr. Foley will provide the petitioner with access to 50-plus parking spaces. Where are these parking places that Mr. Foley is providing them access to? Need I remind this board again, the parking area behind our building, are already committed to the residents of the Red Mill townhouses. So where is this, quote, parking lot which is enclosed by a fence, close quote? Am I to believe that this city is going to reallocate our parking places at the same time placing the Red Mill residents in danger? Is this zoning board going to take away our access to our homes? Are you tonight going to take away our ability to have a few people over to our homes for a dinner, a cookout, a party? Are you going to take away our right to enjoy recreation in our own homes? I'm sorry, these are in fact the things you will be doing to each and every one of us who trusted Mr. Foley when we bought our homes at the Red Mill townhouses. Mr. Foley has cheated us out of the homes he promised us. The question each and every member of this board must ask themselves is this: are you going to grant this petition and take even more away from us? For me, it's very simple. Mr. Foley has failed to meet his obligations to the residents of the Red Mill Condominium Trust, the City of Lowell, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Mr. Foley has committed to the petitioner parking spaces which are already allocated to the residents of the Red Mill townhouses. These reasons are more than enough for this board to reject this petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? In opposition? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of my client, Robert Stevens. He's a tenant, actually, at the Mill Building. He's been a tenant for about 6 years. Mr. Frawley can attest to that. He wanted me just to communicate a few very concerning matters to the board, one of which is the application does state there's going to be no alterations. It should say no further alterations, because all the alterations have been done. They've constructed new doors. They put in lighting. They've painted the place. They sandblasted the walls, floors, whatever they sandblasted. JCR sandblasting in the beginning of September. Sandblasted, and that activity, unpermitted, no permit, no spark permit was pulled. No permits asking to run their business had been pulled. As you can tell, this application, I believe, was submitted on 10/5. The petitioner didn't have insurance at that point in time. So my client is just wanted me to let the board know that he's been a tenant there for 6 years, and the activities of this proposed business cost him, or going to cost him, nearly $50,000, $60,000 in equipment. His own insurance company has expended $17,000 already to have ServPro come in and clean the building after the unpermitted sandblasting that occurred. And he had all his electronic equipment serviced by Electronic Restoration Systems, all to the tune of, excuse me, just one second, I want to be accurate, just to clean the room and dust off the equipment. It was $17,998.98. So it's a very serious matter when a business, and I'm not opposed to business. It sounds like the business may provide some benefits to this particular neighborhood. I have nothing against the company or the people running the company or the person who owns the building. Had they followed the rules and applied for permits, my client wouldn't be out the $50,000. He's being forced to move, which he's in the process of doing. Unfortunately, this comes at his expense in addition to all the equipment that doesn't work now. And the nature of the equipment is audio equipment and effects processes and amplifiers and those sorts of things. He has a rehearsal space for his band there. And frankly, he has to relocate. He's in the process of doing that at the cost of about $10,000 to him. So it's a very, the largest point I think the board should focus on from my comments is why didn't they apply for permits? Why didn't they submit this application in the beginning of September and ask for a spark permit when they're over there in a mill building that the sprinkler system might not even be working properly? You know, they created a real hazardous situation over there in terms of what, you know, when sandblasting occurs and there are sparks are being created, in a mill building, and those buildings are designed to burn. They were designed and built to burn. They created a very hazardous condition over there. And, you know, the neighbors, I think Mr. Vance alluded to, or rather Mr. Frawley alluded to the fact that he sold so many units. He didn't finish selling the last two because the planning board of this city won't give him occupancy permits. You know, the rules have to be followed. They're there for a real reason. If they had been followed, my client wouldn't have had me come here tonight. I actually denied the petition until any and all issues be corrected in that building. My concerns are more with the building than the business.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
Nope,
to...
I'm not finished. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir?
Chairman, members of the board, my name's Chad Banches. I live at 29 Andrews Street in Lowell. I live in the condos that were built there. My backyard is this parking lot that's been allocated for this business, and I'm not actually opposed to this business. I believe that what they're trying to do is a good thing for the community, and I'm supportive of economic growth within the community. But I don't think this has been thought out properly, and it hasn't been planned properly. First of all, the parking lot that's in question doesn't have parking lines. So the cars that do park there just park wherever they please. It creates a very congested situation. The building that's there, I believe, houses another business that sells or does something with used office furniture, and they use the loading docks there for their trucks. So they cause congestion within the parking lot. And as Mr. Vance alluded to, the proposed driving lane, if the proper markings were there, is directly in front of the doors to our condominium units. And I myself, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and we all know they take off sometimes. If she steps out of our door, there's a chance that a car coming down this lane of travel could hit her. I'm very concerned about this parking lot having too much traffic in it. And again, the reason there's the DEP is concerned with this project is because the parking lot's never been finished properly. A top coat was never put on, and so it's deteriorating quickly. There's large potholes that have only been patched. They're starting to open up again, which is exposing the residents to the ground materials that's there. And there too, my daughter rides her bike in this parking lot, and it's not finished. And this has been pointed out by the planning board. There's the question of dumpsters, and I would like to correct one thing there. The dumpster for the townhouses is placed in a position where there's supposed to be parking spaces. So if the parking lot is fully utilized to what was presented to this board, there would be no access for our garbage truck to empty the dumpster, which would be an obvious concern. Those things, I just don't think this parking lot in this space can accommodate the traffic flow that's proposed for this business. And at the very least, I'd ask that you ensure that what was previously required by the city for this project be completed, because the original approval for this project was in 2007. We waited 5 years for this project to be completed correctly, and it still has yet to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition? In opposition, opposition. So I'll remind everyone that the public hearing is closed, either for or against. Now, sir, are you still here representing? Yes. Is he still representing you? Do you have something to say? Yes. Okay. Why don't you address the board?
Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you very much for hearing me. I'd like to reiterate my objection to Attorney LaCourse speaking on behalf of his client at this meeting again. Mr. Stevens has made several representations through counsel that he is no longer in that mill building. I must strongly tell you that this, every word that Attorney LaCourse spoke out in front of you with tonight is in connection with a peripheral lawsuit that has absolutely nothing to do with this permitting hearing. The lawsuit is in connection with some construction work that had been done in the premises. We're not sure that a permit was required, as the contractor who did the work himself stated to my clients that no permit was necessary. My clients understood that as true and went ahead. It was routine maintenance, essentially. The long and short, however, is that what Attorney LaCourse is driving at tonight is trying to compel settlement of this ancillary matter based upon using the board as a means to get that settlement. It's absolutely objectionable, and I truly ask you not to consider what Attorney LaCourse had to say on record as part of the decision that you're making this evening in connection with my client's permitting process. Thank you.
Okay, before I open it up to the board, Joe, I guess I'm going to ask you first. Can you give me any input at all based on, especially the gentleman from Andrew Street that spoke first? There were two gentlemen, but the gentleman that spoke first. This board didn't receive any documentation, any legal docs, anything at all that has anything to do with this gentleman's position. I don't know how it relates to. This isn't a legal board, and I'm not getting into legalese. But I have to ask, the Andrews Street apartments that we're talking about, are these on the plans that were submitted to us? Are they in the bottom left-hand corner, just so I know exactly what we're talking about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the gentleman made some references to EPA and the city. I know we have the planning board, what happened in 2007. But is there anything that this board needs to know from a legal standpoint or EPA, federal side, in regards to this decision?
Yeah, we haven't received anything new from DEP regarding the AUL and compliance or non-compliance.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of any kind of litigation that might occur over audio equipment, where the city wouldn't be involved in that. That would be a private matter. In terms of the parking area in the back, the condo units each have 2 spaces within them in the pull-under garages. Those are the 2 parking space requirements that was required per the zoning code. The parking area in the back is to accommodate the parking needs of the mill building. The 40, somewhere around 42 parking spaces, then another 9 parking spaces along the side. Those are to accommodate the uses in the mill building, while the garage spaces within the condos are to accommodate the parking requirements of the condo units themselves.
Okay, so what you're stating is that the townhomes have 2 parking spots, and that's per regulations, parking regulations.
Right, that's per our zoning requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the 42 that are on site are not part of that condition that those units were put in?
Right, they're not part of the 12 units, of 12 townhouse units. They're
Okay.
designated for the mill building.
Okay. Do you know if that parking is open? To your knowledge, do you know if that parking is available for them or not?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. Anything else? No. Mr. Frawley, can I ask you to come up, please? Since there were quite a few statements regarding the site in general, I'd like to give you an opportunity if you can speak to them. You don't have to, but I'd like to hear if you have anything at all.
No, excuse me. The long-range plan was for 50-plus units on the whole complex. And as I said, those plans have sort of fallen off to the wayside for the time being. But that parking lot was always assigned to that particular 5-story building. These condo people, as myself, I was going to live in the end unit. We have a right to pass and repass. And that's all the rights they have. They have no parking spaces available to them. I've never I've never towed a car, I've never restricted them from using them. You know, they're welcome to. They have events there on weekends, and they use the parking lot. That has not been a problem. If I ever rented or sold, 33 units in that building, then those spaces might be designated, and maybe we might have to make some allowances for the condo association. But I don't see that in the distant future. So, as far as my contribution to the condominiums, I've been plowing that parking lot for 28 years myself. I just stop plowing it last year because we really didn't need the parking lot. And then the condo association was bringing a suit against me. And so I discontinued parking it. And they insisted they needed it, I guess, that we didn't communicate. I haven't received a financial report from the condo. I own four of those condominiums in that we have 2 rented, and 2 they've prevented us from, 4 of them they've prevented us from selling them because they wouldn't sign a favorable questionnaire from the lenders, and the lenders walked away. So there were 24 to 30 people, brokers and salespeople involved in these 4 sales, and they lost their commissions. It's been a very uncomfortable relationship with them, and but I haven't done anything to make them uncomfortable. But I didn't plan on putting that second coating of hot top on because of the rest of the future development. We're going to have heavy equipment in there over the next couple weeks. We thought this project would have been completed in 2009, and it hasn't happened. The other thing about the condo association, my condominium donations have been $26,000 in condo fees that have been paid in the last 20 months. $26,000. And I think that certainly takes care of the plowing of my 4 units that I own. They haven't spent 1 dime on any of the landscaping. They've owned these units for 4.5, 5 years, some of them, and they haven't spent a dime on landscaping. I've taken care of it and maintained it for the last 4 years.
Can I ask you a question about access to the facility in total?
It's been granted by we had engineers do the work, and it was acceptable to the committees, and it's a pretty decent location, and it's easy in and out. We do have some people using it for shortcut. There's a company across the street from us that hire about 25 employees, and they use it as a shortcut. And I haven't tried to prevent them from doing that.
I mean, how many points can you enter the property and exit the property?
2.
So is one of the areas right next to the condos? On
Yes.
the plans I'm looking at. Okay, and the other entrance is?
It should be printed as an easement along the back of the condos for 17 feet, so they can exit from their garages and then drive along the building and then exit out through the loading, next to the loading dock.
And this is exiting on Lawrence Street?
No, actually it exits into the private way that my neighbor and myself maintain, and then it goes out to Lawrence Street. There's a cobblestone space there. It's about 200 feet long by about 60 feet in wide.
Yeah. Joe, did we receive any comments? I don't think I saw anything from the fire department. Is there any, they ever had any issues with this site?
No, we didn't receive anything from the fire
Yeah.
department.
Okay. I assume there were 2, but I just want to make sure that what I'm looking at is correct.
That's correct.
So the getting into the facility and exiting is available to either you live on that site or you're visiting the site. Is that correct?
Yes, and the fire department was comfortable with the plan.
Yep. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add at this point?
No, thank you. We just hope you grant us the
Great.
privilege of having them as tenants.
Yep. Thank you. The board right now, Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions for Mr. Frawley, if I could. I'm still, there's a lot thrown at us tonight, so I'm just trying to understand a little bit of the history here. So this plan was approved in '07 for the condo units.
That's correct.
Why was there a plan done for the 40, is it 42 or is it 51 spaces? How many spaces are here?
There's 43 in that parking lot.
I'm counting I'm counting 42 behind the building,
Correct.
and then 9 beside the building.
Yes.
So that's 51 spaces total.
Yes, but that is on a right-of-way, so they requested us to have the cars parked parallel to the building rather than
Yep.
vertically, perpendicular.
And that's an additional 9, so that's a total of 51.
Yes.
But that's in a right-of-way or an access that's only 23 feet wide, so that only leaves you 15 feet for a drive aisle, correct?
17 feet, I believe, for right-of-way.
No, I'm speaking about the access point at parcel A off of Lawrence Street that runs beside the building, accessing from Lawrence Street to the parking lot in the back. There's
Oh, I
9
see.
spaces shown in the plan here, in a 23-foot width that only allows 15 feet for a drive aisle beside that. That means a one-way traffic flow to me, not two-way, if you have cars parked there.
Yes, it is expected to be used as a one-way.
That's a one-way, okay. And so then the way out, if that's the way in, is this circuitous kind of access that brings you back out onto Lawrence Street. Is that correct?
No, that, I believe what you're looking at is what the plans were for the future. When the 5-story building was developed, that was the entrance, because it was going to go through that parking lot, which would have been another.
The reason I'm asking all these questions is because you're representing a successful layout for parking for going forward with the new business that you're entertaining for the space. So just explain to me how this works, because it's unclear how traffic flow works. And there seems to be a lot of concerns about traffic flow here.
Well, our intention is, as we prepared a statement for you, I hope you all have received it. We plan to meet all the conditions of the original plan, which is the master plan, which is what you're looking at as a master plan.
Okay, and so that does show this circuitous kind of route off of the rear parking lot back onto Lawrence Street.
Yes, which doesn't exist.
When would that exist?
Perhaps it might not, but it wasn't required as an egress. It's a building. It's a building was good to be demolished, and it's there.
So that leaves you, the only out is the
Mr. McCarthy,
back.
if I may, you're right. In the interim, the entrance was to come on Lawrence Street, with the exit being by the condominiums on Andrews Street. It was designed for one-way flow, entrance on Lawrence, exit onto Andrews.
And that exit onto Andrews, then, whose property is that entrance is happening across? Is that the property for the existing brick building, or is that an easement across the condos?
That's part of the master plan for the phase 1 and 2, which is another 11 townhouses were to go in that property. And that was halted because of the difficulty in selling these condos. And by the way, I apologize for sounding a little ignorant about some of these statistics. My attorney, Jim Flood, wasn't available tonight to help me through this process. So, the plan, I think, if Joseph could help explain it probably better than I can. I'm not an engineer. But it was a plan that was presented that was acceptable at the time. But there's plenty of access. That exit, by the way, onto the right-of-way that goes onto Lawrence Street is as wide as this room. So, but when we pave the parking lot and we stripe the area and put in the landscaping we plan on doing in the spring, that'll identify all the areas of traffic. I think if that explains it.
I wish I was looking at a better prepared plan, frankly, that actually stated what exists and what doesn't exist and what you're asking for, because it really is confusing. Another question, the condominiums have a 19-foot wide space behind them to a property line, I take it, or an edge of an easement or something? It says parking.
The property line ends at the garage door.
The property
And then
line
they have an
ends at the
easement.
garage
They
door,
have an
okay.
easement, yeah.
So they have then a easement that's only 19 feet wide,
That's correct.
that is what they're entitled to use
That's correct.
to access their 2-car parking spaces in their garage.
Correct. And the depth of the garage is 46 feet.
It's a wonderful garage, I'm sure. It's just complicated, to say the least. Okay.
I have a model that I brought down just to help answer some of those questions when I went for the approvals. And it was a lot easier to look at a big piece of real estate with a model. And I wish they had brought it down with me.
I have a couple more questions, and then I'll be through, I promise.
Sure.
The existing building is how many square feet?
There's 45, the five-story building's 45,000 square feet, 9,000 square feet in each floor.
9,000
Well,
each?
excuse me, yes, that's including the basement.
And it currently is being used by a few tenants, or one tenant, or how many tenants do you have?
One tenant occupies 1/3 of the property. 5 tenants occupy the other third, and the other third of the property is vacant. It's
And
been
what-
very difficult property to not only lease, but to manage. Old mill buildings are really difficult.
I understand. How is it currently, is it storage, or is it?
It's
office?
mostly storage. The furniture storage company out of Lynn, they store their materials there, and they occupy about 1/3 of the space.
So again, this plan is showing parking without a loading condition, how the building would successfully manage tenants that have a storage component and share parking. I don't see that on this plan. I don't understand how truck access can take place and a successful parking scenario for the existing tenants or any new tenants.
Well, the trailer trucks aren't coming and going. It's very infrequent. If one 16-foot truck comes up once a week, that'd be a lot. And there's a loading dock that faces the private right-of-way, which is what they back up to. So they're not extending the cab out into the parking area. And when we put the signage in, that'll be even more obvious. And it'll be enforced also. But we don't expect any more heavy. People aren't locating in this kind of a building. People with tractor-trailer trucks aren't locating. That's why it's been very difficult to rent it. I've had this with brokers, and they all threw in the towel. You know.
I'm all for a successful tenant here, and I think that this is a great tenant. I'm just trying to find the system that allows this to make sense, because you have a big building that you have a storage component in, you have a driveway that's a little complicated, you have a parking area that's not defined, and you have existing conditions that aren't up to the levels that we, as a city, would want to see maintained. So I'm a little frustrated, but I am in favor of the project.
Well,
So,
our plan is to live up to the expectations of the city and the condo association and complete the parking lot, in spite of the fact they don't own it.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think I only have comments. I don't think I have any further questions. I guess I understand both sides of the issue here. The reality for me is, at least, that it's a building that has parking that goes with it. So when this is originally intended, the only way for that building to succeed is to have its parking with it. Otherwise, it can't have any tenants. So I guess in my opinion, the tenants of the 12, I think it was Red Mill townhouses, don't seem to have the right to dictate what's going on in that parking lot. Although Mr. Frawley's been nice enough to let them use it. I don't know if there's a way to separate them, so the townhouse has their space and the parking lot is separated. I don't think there's room enough to do that. But looking behind the townhouses from their lot line to where this parking is proposed, by scale, it looks to be roughly the same width as Andrew Street. So there seems to be plenty of room back there. Granted, it's not my backyard, so that's easy for me to say looking at this proposal. But that's the nature of the mixed-use plot plan, unfortunately. So I guess it's my opinion that those parking spaces go with the building, so however they're used to go with the tenancy of the building, I think is the right of the building owner. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
If I could say one
Sure,
thing.
absolutely.
All involved when these purchases took place in the 2007, 8, and 9 were represented by brokers on both sides. And I wasn't involved in the negotiations, only to a minimum amount of extent. And the deeds, they were very aware that, in fact, I think in the conditions it states that the people that are buying the units are aware that it's a commercial industrial area, and there will be traffic. Much less.
Sir, you can't say anything. Can't. Sir, you can't. Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, please. Thank you.
You answer me that. How did it get zoned with no parking for guests? No parking for me?
Sir, you're out of line.
You screwed us, and you're gonna sit there and do the same.
Sir, you're out of line. Have a good night.
Sorry about that. Yes, sir?
I understand. I've been going through this for quite a while.
Okay, so let me continue. Two things I'd like to ask at this point. We were handed, and Joe, maybe I'll bounce this off you. We were handed, I believe from you, sir, about these meeting the conditions.
Yes.
So Joe, first question to you is everything 1 through 4 that he's outlined here, that they have outlined here, do they meet all the existing open conditions that the planning board put in place?
There were a few others. One had to deal with stormwater review by a city engineer. That would be reviewed when the property owner would seek a paving permit from the engineering department to pave the parking area with the final coat of paving. There were some other ones that were more aesthetic in nature, dealing with how the building would look like with different gas meters, electrical meters, how they would be screened, and when the portion of the building that was indicated earlier would be demolished, how that would look like as an end product. So those were a couple other things that were outstanding, just having a finalized plan and elevation showing what those would look like.
Okay, and the other thing I see in your language that's on here, you have our lender will agree to the financing of these conditions if the applicant, CrossFit Lowell, would be granted an occupancy permit. So does that mean if it wasn't permitted and granted, you're not going to perform any of these? Everything's conditioned on them getting their approval?
I plan on doing it, and this is just put it in the fast track. And the bank is realizing that these people, these condo association, I turned the condo association over to them 3 years ago. They're not going to budge, and we're not going to sell any townhouses there until we get those conditions completed. The planning board dictated to me to get the conditions done, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so something I'm just wrestling with, you're putting a condition on a condition that you're going to do something. I don't know what that means to this board, when and if you're going to do it.
Well, the bank's feeling is that the condo association is so resistant to us selling the other units that this has happened before, and it's created an enormous problem for myself and the bank, because they're reluctant to allow me to sell or rent. Now they say that I can't rent them to anyone. And I'm still paying a condo fee of $165 a month for the 4 units. It's been very unfair, and the bank feels like they've been getting pushed around a little bit, and they want to have the thing go forward. We want to be able to walk away from it really soon, and they're willing to go along with it if they don't, and if the conditions are met, they will finally grant us the occupancy permits. And they're willing to finance the sales of these 4 units and ignore the opinion of the trustees of the condo association, who are on just something. There's a lot of personal things going on in the trustee association.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just trying to balance the statement that's in here, because, we were asked to take a look at making sure we conditioned the planning board's conditions back in 2007. Yet I'm looking at a document saying, let's condition something else again, that this business can come in. Only if they come in, then you're going to follow up on the conditions. So I kind of have a little gray area with that statement.
Well, I wish the bank was present, or Attorney Flood were. I drafted that this afternoon, that agreement, because I couldn't find the conditions at 2 o'clock this afternoon. And if I missed 2 of those conditions, I apologize for it. But I was really focusing on the really important issues, which is the paving, which is over $20,000, and then the striping, and then the landscaping, which can be done now in the spring.
Okay.
But we're just very anxious to be able to pave it this week. That's why there's a lot of urgency now.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, we were giving a picture of the signage.
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't see that, but that's fine.
Yeah.
If it's
Can I
acceptable.
speak to you about this for a second? Yeah. So is this a picture of what it might look like at some?
No, it's, that's an actual picture of the sign as it exists.
Okay, so that's on the building right now?
No, that's kind of waiting at my ironsmith's house, actually, so.
Okay. And will this be the only signage?
Mhm.
And will this be located within the facility or on the outside?
It'll be on the outside. At least that would be the proposal.
Okay, have you discussed that with Mr. Frawley, where it's going to go? You have?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to move it to Corey.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chairman. Now, I do recall this in 2007 when, the market, we did approve this project with about 50-some-odd units, and, I understand the market took a turn for the worse, and it made it rather difficult. I do understand that, but what we have here is a plan for parking for 53 units, but the game has changed a little bit, so to speak, and I think most of the residents and the board, for the most part, do support the nature of this business. I think it'd be a good thing down in that area. It's conducive to the other businesses, in the rear. So I think this would be a good fit. But we do have some little issues here that are, Dennis tried stating earlier that it's very unclear to us here that we're having trouble comprehending. Because, I don't want, I know if this does get approved, you have, a rather extensive list here of conditions that need to be taken care of, and that will solve a lot of these issues, and I think it would help the residents in the rear and your building as well. But I still think we have some safety issues, so I just don't want, if this does get approved, to, I don't want a dangerous situation in the interim until the spring when, it does get paved and all that. But one thing that stands out in particular is an area going, the exit, say, going on to Andrews Street, that abuts Prince Ave, it looks like here from the plan. They've been parking at, I'm hearing. We have concerns here on the city side. That area, that spot, or maybe two, should be, stamped exit, or some vehicles don't park there. That's posing a problem. Because, as you said, we got businesses using this area as a cut-through, so to speak, and that, and they're just trying to save time going as fast as they can, so I'd like to help alleviate that. I don't know what you can do, notifying, the local business that you'd like to work, but it's to try and minimize that, if at all.
Well, I'd be more than willing to put signage up. The entrance from Andrews Street, that is the entrance. And it wouldn't be a very good exit because it'd be obstructed by the front porches of the units. So we decided that one way would be down, and plus, besides that, it's downhill. So it wouldn't be a problem if it gets icy in the winter. So we could put signage up so that would be an absolute entrance, and it wouldn't be an exit.
Now,
And that would cut down enormously on the traffic. That means the people next door would only use it coming to work instead of leaving.
Yes, okay, that I think, we don't want to create a bad situation. You got residents there in the rear. I think you got a hairy situation going on here. How about what would be the approximate width now if we eliminate that spot, making an exit?
Well, there's a fence. There's a rolling fence that's in position right now, and I think it's about 60 feet, and we've closed off. It's an opening of 120 feet. And we've closed off 60 feet of it, so the whole area wouldn't be just be used as a passageway.
Okay.
But I'm more than willing to, whatever the planning board has decided, if they want to make some changes to, or give me any direction that you think would be more safety-wise.
Yes,
I'm more than
without
happy to
causing
do it.
you and the petitioner, some undue financial burden, I don't want to do that to a small business, but if we can almost revise this parking, this enter and exit a little bit, maybe if this does get approved, we can make it contingent upon opening. But I don't want a dangerous situation. I know everything should be hunky-dory in the spring. Let's hope so, for everybody's sake. But, you know, I don't want a dangerous situation there in the meantime, so.
I understand. I'll work
I
very
think
closely with Aaron with another design if you so choose. That parking lot design isn't set in stone, I don't think. At least not as far as the planning board is concerned.
Right, okay, well.
So, and it isn't with me either.
I think parking is ample for what your applicant would like to do, but it's just very complicated, to say the least, so. If we can make some change, you know, a little bit of changes to the park, enter and exits, especially, you know, till the spring, that we can get that area nice and cleaned up with new pavement and whatnot, and then we'll all be a lot happier, I think, so. I'd like to hear the input from my other board members here, so that's how I stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you, Corey. Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Farley, I had heard that there were other mill tenants in the mill building, so I was just curious, do they use parking as well?
Minimal. There's an income tax company in the front of the building,
Okay,
and that's seasonal, but they rent the space year-round.
okay,
And there's a church. There's one small religious group that rented one office from me about 5 years ago. It was originally approved for a church and a church and the Department of Social Services. So our space accommodated Department of Social Services, and they went up to 100 people in employment before they moved downtown from the auditorium. But they were in that space for 7 years, and there was never a parking problem. And they didn't really go out into the parking lot to use it, even though it was available. It used to be a laundry. That parking lot was a part of a laundry, commercial laundry, years ago.
okay. Thank you. I also agree, this is a very complicated application, and I do share the same frustration regarding the plan. It's very confusing. And I heard that you are interested, or you would be willing to go back to the drawing board in terms of redesigning or
Yes, if I was,
creating a new plan for parking.
I wouldn't have a problem surrendering a few parking spaces, you know, to make the plan more desirable or approvable, I should say.
Yeah, because I heard some really important concerns. Safety, the loading dock, even no matter how often the truck is coming, they'll still need access. And dumpster access. I'm hearing those concerns, and I think this needs to be completely redesigned, and I hope could take these concerns in mind.
I'll work very closely with Aaron to see that you're satisfied with
Okay.
the new design. And Aaron is pretty efficient.
Yes, he is. Hearing about this AUL and being in non-compliance, what is the status of that right now?
Well, a brief description of the AUL. It's called an activity use limitation. In 1980, there was a very tremendous fire in that building. And almost 65% of it was burned to the ground. That building was 4 times as big as it is right now. And the people that bought the building, they took the debris from the fire and put it in the cellar hole, which is now the parking lot.
Okay.
So it's called urban waste. It's not hazardous, it's not oil, it's not asbestos, it's not lead. It's just lumber. It's wood, and I just didn't like that comment about these mill buildings are designed for something else tonight. But that's what's in the ground, and it's considered and as long as you keep it covered and protected, you can't build on it. If you want to build on it, you have to remove it. Well, we need parking spaces today. In those days, they used the railways so that the cable car came down along the side, and that was a very large industrial building, and we needed parking in the 80s, not transportation through the bus system. So that's why an AUL is what it is. But we have to assure the state that it is covered, you know, with at least 2 inches of pavement,
Okay.
and we haven't put the second coat on. So that's caused a bit of a problem. We've patched it, and we've met with the DEP people, the tenants of the condo people called DEP. As recent as a month ago, they took pictures and called DEP and took pictures of about the size of this.
Okay.
And we assured them that we were going to repair them, and they're very, very willing to go along with our deadline, which is ASAP or in the spring. They understand we can't do anything, but they did ask me to hot patch it. But I said, I think we're going to be able to pave the whole thing efficiently next week.
Okay.
That's what we hope for.
All right, thank you very
And
much.
put the lineage in also that's required for the parking spaces.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I actually have a couple questions for the applicant as well. Thanks. Thanks. I'm actually familiar with CrossFit, so I
Great.
know what a great organization, great business it is. My first question was regarding the signage, which I love. I was just curious, could you share the dimensions of it?
Sure. It is 10 feet 4 inches long by 1.5 feet wide,
Okay,
and I'm not sure what the thickness is.
okay, thanks.
Sure.
I heard you talk about CrossFit Kids, which is something I had never heard about. This is more purely a curiosity
Sure.
question. I know that there's another CrossFit that actually came to us too, and I think it's CrossFit Merrimack.
Merrimack, yeah.
Yes. How do you see this business different from theirs, and is it meeting a different need? I know that there's limited class sizes, so I was just curious.
CrossFit in general is a very tribal kind of a thing. The way that it works is that we're not a franchise, we're an affiliate program. We have CrossFit headquarters, which is based in California, and that's who we pay our affiliation dues to yearly. Everything else is pretty much Lord of the Flies kind of style. So, however we really want to program things and so forth is really up to the owners and the trainers who are there at each individual gym. As far as the CrossFit Kids thing goes, there is a certification process that you have to go through, and you have to be quarried and all of that stuff just to make sure that everything's above the boards. And I don't believe that that's something that any of the CrossFits in the Merrimack Valley area are currently offering. And as I said, I really, I worked with kids for the last 8 years. I love kids. I miss kids. It's something that I'm really looking forward to being able to offer when we open. So it would be similar to what we do with the adults, except more game-based and so forth. And again, I'm very seriously considering a local chapter of the Steve's Club program too. And I think that honestly, Lowell is a wonderful spot for that. We've got all kinds of different diversity here. We've got a ton of different socioeconomic stratas happening, and I think that in order to make something that's active and pleasant and positive accessible to every kid who otherwise might be, roaming around getting into trouble, I feel like I have a responsibility to be able to do that. So,
Great, thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I think I really want to support your company in this business. At this point, I'm still really concerned about the parking and the other conditions that weren't met from back in 2007. So, yeah, just something to chew on. So
Sure.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Just to address the parking real quick, because I know that is a real sticking point at the moment. I don't know if folks besides my colleagues have been to CrossFit classes or not. My personal standpoint on them, they really are intended to be 15 people or fewer. And as a coach personally, I don't want to keep eyes on more than 15 people. I might have some sort of an exercise set up where people need barbells, and there might be 8 people in front of me, and if there are 6 behind me, I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I can't be doing 360s the entire time in my class, I will have another trainer there. However, I really only want us to be responsible for a handful of people. We're doing movements that are potentially harmful. Really, any time that you're not laying in bed, it's potentially harmful. And I really, I'm very, very focused on making sure that everyone is safe and well taken care of under my guidance. So, the solution to more people coming down the pike would be not to just pack classes full of 30 people, because frankly, that's for the birds. I don't want to have anything to do with that. It would be adding more class times, basically, so that we would just expand our hours beyond the 4 that are currently planned per day. So, that hopefully should assuage some of the parking as well, because like I said, I don't want more than 15 people there. I personally can't handle it. I'm only one coach, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no more questions or comments.
Thank you, Melissa. Van.
situation and safety. And his business sounds like a great business. But I think that we as a board don't have enough information yet. So my suggestion or recommendation is that I think we should continue this petition to the next meeting to get more information. I had a lot of just questions and concerns with the board, just lack of understanding. So if I was to vote tonight, I think I couldn't approve this. There's just not enough information. And like you said, Mr. Chairman, we approve with the condition on top of another condition from 2007. So like, where does it end? Where does it begin for me? So those are my thoughts on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Van. Okay, well, I guess in summary, it's kind of interesting for one business to come into a building. We've gone well over an hour on this discussion, and, I can appreciate this gentleman coming up from his residence. Obviously, he's going to be impacted. The other gentleman left. I understand their feelings. I think what got lost in the shuffle here is the business itself, the purpose of the business. Does it fit? I firmly believe the business fits. I think it's a great idea. But there seems to be a lot of questions around the site in general, which then falls to you, Mr. Frawley. I'm still struggling with the conditions here, the way they were written up, Joe. And even though I believe at the end of the day they're going to be followed, I just have a lot of problem with this whole thing about they get approved and I'm going to do this. So I've never, to my knowledge, since I've been on this board, I don't think I've ever said, hey, can we have a condition on top of a condition that something transpires? I have grave concern because we've talked about this parking so much that the parking gets done. And what I've heard through this letter is it'll be done if the business is approved. So I'm kind of struggling with that. I don't know how the other board members feel with that, but I'd like to just, if I can bounce that off of you, if you can give me some feedback on that, please.
Sure. The board could condition that a number of conditions are taken care of prior to any occupancy permit being issued to the business. For any approval of the board, we typically have certain conditions that are met prior to, if a foundation permit is needed prior to that, if certain things need to be taken care of before a building permit is issued, we'll designate those conditions being done prior to that. And then finally, before an occupancy permit is issued. The idea is that all the conditions are met prior to the final occupancy being issued for the building. In this case, there are a number of units in the building, so maybe it's such that this occupancy permit could be issued while others are still held, so that all outstanding conditions are adhered to prior to the building being fully occupied. I'm not sure that's kind of the board's decision to make.
What's that?
I said that's really the board's decision to make.
Yep. Well, my concern here is, can I ask you one more time to come up? Talk about browbeating. How close are you to opening? Now, I heard a story about work already being done. I don't want to go down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But how close are you to opening?
We're ready. We're ready to go.
Okay. So my concern here now is if they're ready to go, and now I'm asking for Mr. Frawley to do certain things, which pushes back the business starting, it's one way or the other here. So I'm not trying to impact, if we're going to approve something, then the business got to sit around and wait X amount of months, for instance, because I haven't heard a firm date when things are going to get started. That's kind of where I'm coming from with the questions I'm asking. So, and the last thing I had was the hours of operation. You stipulated what they were today.
Right. So the plan is to have a 6:30 a.m., a noon time, a 5:30, and a 6:30 p.m.
Is it more than likely those are going to be your permanent hours for an extended period of time?
Yeah,
I know
I would
things
say-
might change in the future, I
Right.
understand that.
I mean,
but-
long term, I would say that at least 6 months, that would be
Yep.
what we were looking at, so.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Did you want to? I'm trying to tie this thing off, but I want to make sure.
I'm a Patriots fan, too.
I want to make sure everything is covered because we've covered so much ground here. Again, we go back to one business.
If this is of any help,
Yep.
That was a rough draft that I put together tonight, and it came from my heart. I can have Jimmy Flood this week do it more professionally, and whatever is acceptable for language for Aaron. And if the language I put in maybe isn't accurate.
That's okay.
I'm not an attorney, so I can apologize for that, but I can be with Attorney Flood this week and meet with Aaron. And it'd be nice if they could get at least, to show good faith, if they could have any type of temporary opening, contingent upon my doing what I promised to do. And we're willing to put a bond up, for whatever amount you require for that.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's good to hear. Now, Joe, if he wants to have some language redrafted by Attorney Flood, for instance, can we still move ahead tonight and do that? It's almost like now conditioning something on Mr. Flood to produce a document. Because I know we don't meet in 2 weeks. We probably don't meet till...
Not till January, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so 3 weeks, a month. So the clock's still ticking. So any suggestions how we might want to handle that?
Well, the board could have, as a condition, that Attorney Flood draft that up, and it could be brought back to the board for review and approval at your January meeting. That's certainly an option. In the interim, well, the appeal period has to be waited out anyway for a decision letter to be filed with the clerk's office, and then there's the 20-day appeal period. So we really couldn't issue an occupancy permit until that is done.
Okay,
So-
yeah, well, that's, okay, so that might, did you follow what Mr. Jenowitz said? So this is why you should have had your other friend come tonight.
It's on vacation.
I know. Oh, he's smart. Okay, I think what I'd like to do is, well, I'll open it up to the board. Any members have any comments on what I'm thinking about?
Oh,
And
yeah,
what we
Mr.
might
Chairman,
wanna do?
I do hear your concerns. I know we're trying to help the business here. We want to see her, move her along, see her open and do well. But we also have some safety issues there and some obligations that need to be met. And we need some sort of guarantee that this work is going to get completed. I know, without being a stickler, I want to see a parking plan before she opens, which I think is easy enough. I want this parking, egress, exits, and entrances really, really tapered out in the interim, which I don't think is a big deal. But let's waive it by other board members, see what they want done immediately, and do we put a set date on the rest of the conditions? I'm throwing it out there. Thank you.
Anything else?
I agree with Corey that in a perfect world, we would have a landlord that would have a operating facility that works well and works well for the tenants. And I don't feel this one does. It doesn't have good signage, it doesn't have good entry and egress, and it's not a maintained parking lot. And I think that's unfortunate because the application really isn't for that. The application is for something completely different, a special permit, which we would want to grant. So I'm torn because I really think we should go ahead and approve the application for the special permit, which is what it is, but the condition of the property is such that I feel frustrated. So that's all I can offer.
Okay, thank you. Comments? No? Okay. Well, and Corey, you can, we have a couple of conditions so far, right?
Yep, the redesigning parking plan, egress is what? Redesigning parking plan and egress is whatnot, yes, one I have here.
All right, and then there's the meeting of the conditions of the planning board's decision in 2007.
Yep.
So Joe, for language regarding, I'd like the document that Mr. Farley's asking that he says he, that he's asking, that he's requesting he can put up is through Attorney Flood producing another set, I'll call it a set of conditions, the way Mr. Farley laid out. I'd also like to have that produced. Now, Can we ask for that within like a 2-week time frame, or how do we want to frame that up? This is kind of, you know, uncharted waters we're going down here, so.
It
I wanna
is.
Make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah, you could have it require that it be submitted to the board by a certain date for review and approval at your next meeting. If you wanted it 2 weeks or end of the calendar year, or.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
I
know
guess
what's
I can be Mr. Flood now. Huh? He could be away for December, but I'm going to request that, you know, the board receives the document from Attorney Flood within a 2-week time frame, so no later than the 24th. I'm sure he'll have it bundled up nice for Christmas. Does anybody have any other conditions that, so Joe, on the signage, we're all set on the signage. We don't have to worry about, I think I asked you this question before even the meeting. We're all set on the signage. There's nothing in regards to regulations.
Yeah, it seems like the sign meets the
Yep.
sign regulations. It's not illuminated,
Yep.
based on the size of it. Said tonight, it sounds like it's meeting size requirements too, so.
Okay, anything else before I move on this? And again, sir, that came here from Andrew Street, I appreciate you coming down. Hopefully this works out for you. Okay, can I have a motion, please?
Yeah, here goes, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion to approve with the following conditions: that all previous conditions be met, set forth by the planning board's favorable decision in 2007. Second, redesigning parking plan accordingly to clearly stating entrances and exits, and to include the elimination of 2 parking spaces exiting to Andrew Street abutting Prince Ave.
And the third one is, I need the document from Attorney Flood. Do you have any language on that? But
And third, a document from a counselor representing the building owner that all conditions will be met
from 2007,
from 2007.
yeah. So 1 and 3 almost sound the same, but I think you understand exactly what we're looking for. Okay. Anything else from any board members?
Well, I'd like to state, Joe, condition number 2, the redesigning the parking plan, I'd like that done prior to occupancy certificate.
Okay. Okay, can I have a second?
Second the motion?
Have a roll call.
Actually, I just wanted one further clarification on that second condition. That would be brought back to the board for review and approval at the next meeting?
Well, I think in regards to the rewrite,
Yeah, the redesigned parking plan.
oh, redesigned parking plan, yes.
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 Okay.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second the motion?
Have a roll call.
Mr. Hearn?
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Bailey?
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Belanger?
Approve with conditions.
Ms. Carino?
I'm going to deny.
Mr. McCarthy?
Approved with conditions.
Okay, can I see you at the podium one more time? This will be, I promise, the last time. So you've been approved with conditions.
Thank you.
Hopefully you understand the other conditions that we put upon this, but hopefully at the end of the day, you can get your business up and running. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, next matter before us is under new business. This is ZB 2012-52. The petition is a variance. The applicant is Middlesex Partners Limited Partnership. The property is located at 1857 Middlesex Street, and the petition is demolish and renovate portions of an existing building, along with construct additions and accessory structures for a new school use, without meeting frontage requirements pursuant to section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. The board has received a communication from Attorney George Elides. I'm going to read it into the record. Dear Chairman Bailey, this office represents Middlesex Partners Limited Partnership, petitioner for variance under case number ZB 2012-52. Request is hereby made to continue the public hearing scheduled for Monday, December 10th, 2012, until your meeting on January 14th, 2013, for the purpose of allowing the petitioner to have additional time to respond to comments from various department heads and the Department of Planning and Development, provide information to neighbors and the City of Lowell Planning Board, and to prepare sufficient information to provide to the Zoning Board of Appeals at its public hearing. Thank you in advance for your anticipated cooperation. So, based on our communication from Attorney Elides, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this petition to January 14th, 2013.
I'll make a motion to continue to January the 14th, 2013.
Second the motion.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Hearn.
Approve, or continue, sorry.
Mr. Bailey.
Continue to January 14th, 2013.
Mr. Belanger.
Continue.
Ms. Carino.
Continue.
Mr. McCarthy.
Continue.
Okay, our next matter before us, which is ZB 2012-53. It's a petition, a special permit. The applicant is 22 Shattuck LLC. This property is located at 22 Shattuck Street. The petition is to convert an existing art supply store connected to a two-story professional office building into one residential unit pursuant to Article 12, Table of Uses of the zoning ordinance. Good evening, Mr. Gallagher. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Bailey. How are you?
I bet you never waited this long to go before a board.
I haven't. It's the first time I've ever been before the zoning board. It was a very interesting meeting.
Okay, well,
I
we'll see if we can go 2 hours for you. Let's see how
I
you like that.
applaud your service and your ability to make your way through a lot of differing views and perceptions.
Okay.
It's very impressive.
So what would you like to tell us about your,
I'm going to be very brief, Mr. Bailey, primarily because my architect has Patriots tickets and is supposed to be on the road to I almost said Schaefer Stadium, to Gillette Stadium, and I owe him a great deal for sticking around. Mr. Vice Chair as well, members of the ZBA, thanks for the opportunity to hear from us. I'm here with my wife, Linda, as well. We bought the building over at 22 Shattuck Street about 1.5 years ago when we moved our law offices from there to what is known, or was known as the Gaslight Building. We spent a lot of time and energy and resources restoring that. We hope that it is reflective of and mindful of the Gaslight history of that building. We loved it so much and enjoy so much being downtown that we decided to actually move downtown, or at least to seek to move downtown. And that's in part because of what all of you have done and the other boards in the city have done to make it a very livable place, a place where you can practice law, despite occasional sirens at mid-afternoon. It's a great place to practice law. It's also a great place to frequent taverns and restaurants and the arts and so on and so forth. So we really, having raised 3 kids, we now are ready to sell our 114-year-old former frat house in the Belvedere section of the city and move down to a 1,000 square foot cottage next to our law offices. We're very excited about that. And so when our current tenant, who is an art supply store earlier this fall, let me know that he'd be moving just a couple of blocks away. He wants to put his art supply store together with the Arts League of Lowell gallery space all on one floor, and it's not big enough where he is right now. When he let us know that he was going to be moving, we thought, what are we going to do with the space? Right now, we're renting almost the same square footage back at the boot where we came from before to store our files. You have to keep all of this legal stuff for about 7 years or so. My initial thought, great, we can save a couple of dollars and move the files over to the cottage. And then my wife persuaded me it's not a place to store files, it's a place maybe to live. It was at one time the gas house of the future. The gas company owned it from 1859 to the 1940s, and in 1936 or thereabouts, it decided that now that we have these newfangled gas appliances, we ought to bring people in here to let them see what it's going to look like. And so literally consumers in the 30s and 40s were brought into the gas house for the future, sort of an early model kitchen in this cottage to see how these appliances will work. It was the gas house of the future, and now we would like to make it our house of the present and the future as well. We have consulted with an excellent architect who has Patriots tickets, and Jay actually assisted us in the renovation of our existing building and did a great job. He's done a number of historic buildings in the area. He's done a fantastic job. He came up with some of the plans that were submitted in connection with this proposal. We also reached out to our surveyor who had done the property originally, asked him to do an updated plan for all of you so that you would see the way it looks today. And in addition, we have consulted with Mrs. Stowell at the Historic Board, with whom we worked very carefully and closely over the last number of years in renovating the Gaslight building. He is excited, if I may say so, about this prospect as well. If you've ever been by the space, it's got a nice green space out in front. We're looking forward to restoring that so that if you're having something to eat at Life Alive, there's a little bit of a public garden space there and maybe a tiered space going back so that we might have a little privacy in the back. It'll just be my wife and I and maybe an occasional son who comes back from college or grad school or what have you. So we're really looking forward to this. I was unaware that I would have to apply for this, but once I was apprised of that, we worked very closely with Aaron and with Jay and Steve to make this a reality and to get the package ready for you. So I'm here, and Linda is here, and Jay is here to answer any questions you may have.
Well, you know, the first thing I'm going to say is they always come back.
I've heard that, Mr. Bailey. I've heard that. We actually have a little bit of a condo up in Maine, and they can maybe go up there and spend some time. But we're also going to have a Murphy bed, I think, just in case.
Yeah.
But they're firmly ensconced, they tell me, at least right now, in various other parts of the country. So hopefully that'll remain. But they'll be back on occasion to visit.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I took a ride down there. Obviously, if I don't know that part of the neighborhood by now, shame on me. But it's very, I'll say, invigorating to go down there and take a look. I mean, it's really a total mixed use if you look at the whole area that's down there. And it's kind of interesting when you look at this. You know, I'm not a big guy that watches TV and watches all those home shows all the time. Maybe once in a while, cheat on something. But you know, I could see them actually having this on there because it's unique in flavor. I mean, anybody can be honest about that as far as the character of the building and the attachment. Even the picture that we were provided, you know, speaks volumes for the site. And in my walking around, I did even take a walk around back. And as far as I'm assuming one of those for garbage pickup and trash. Are you utilizing either one or two of the bins that are out and back?
Yes, there's a dumpster that's shared, Mr. Bailey, by Van Gogh's Gear right now and our law firm. And once Van Gogh's Gear leaves, we would then share that dumpster as well.
Okay, so your plan would be to use that also?
Correct.
For your private residence, okay. Okay, and the only other thing that I had was, I noticed when we got DPD's comments, they talked in reference to, I guess, historical board, and I'm sure Mr. Mason would have understanding of that also, that they had mentioned that it'd have to come before historic, both for the facility or the building and also for the ground. So beyond that, I really didn't have anything else to ask you at this point. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move along?
I don't think so.
Great. Great. So I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone here would like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone here would like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. Yep. Evening, sir.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mark Middleton. I live at Air Lofts on Middle Street. I don't see the sign-up sheet to sign in here. Maybe someone took it by mistake.
I always saw people signing it, so hopefully it's up there.
There's a blank sheet. Well, I have a blank piece of paper.
It's okay,
but-
if you want to fill that in.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Someone might have taken it by mistake.
Yeah, for a change, people actually were signing it.
I just want to let you know that I oppose what is being proposed by the petitioner for the following reasons. Number one being parking. There's no dedicated parking to residents right now on the street, and if you go there during the daytime, it is taking up the entire street. The issue becomes at nighttime. If you have two other residents parking there, possibly two and a visitor every so often, it's a struggle to find parking as it is now. Now, Mr. Gallagher may point to the fact that Enterprise Bank parking lot is across the street and maybe two buildings down from the subject property. However, Enterprise Bank parking lot is a private parking lot. That's not a public parking lot. And there are plans by Enterprise Bank to eventually develop that parcel, which would take away the parking that Enterprise is gracious enough to allow people to park there. So again, I find that it just wouldn't fit right now with the difficulty of finding parking on the street. Unlike other major cities like Boston, we don't have residents-only parking for the downtown area during certain times of the year. And it makes it even worse come December 1 through March 31st. You can't park down in the downtown area because you could be subject to towing if there's a snowstorm. Also, second issue is that right now the city has an issue with revenues to pay for all the items in the budget for the city, as we all know. And that currently, the subject property is a commercial property. The mill rate is twice the amount for commercial versus residential. So if you do allow it to change to a residential property, effectively you would be cutting the revenues to the city in half. So for those following reasons, I disagree. I think the commission should not allow that to take place. However, if they do, I think they should condition that there would be an issue related to parking. Maybe they can't park on the street, as well as that the mill rate would stay as a commercial mill rate instead of it being changed to a lower residential rate.
Okay, sir. So I can address the parking. We received a communication from the City of Lowell Parking Department. And in the letter, it informs us that presently Michael Gallagher is a pass card holder at the Leo Roy Garage, and his vehicle has 24/7 parking privileges. And if this permit is approved, his wife Linda will also enter a lease with the parking department.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That may very well be the case. I don't dispute that. However, that doesn't say in the future that they wouldn't park on the street and that they wouldn't have guests coming to the street and parking on the street.
Okay, so what I would say to that is we've had a few different projects downtown where parking has been really not available, and part of the condition that we've put on the building owners is that they go out and seek lease arrangements with the garages in the area so that those potential tenants have a place to park, because it isn't provided to meet the parking requirements. So I firmly believe that since they provided this to us, we would have to hold them to it if they've gone out and they're going to purchase these agreements. I got to believe that's what they're going to do. How they're going to do things without the parking, that's not this board's responsibility to follow people around to see where they're going to park.
That was going to be my follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, which is there are conditions in the first item on the agenda today there was a project that was done in 2007, conditions weren't met, and no one seemed to follow up on those conditions until that particular petitioner came before this board approximately 4 or 5 years later. So my question is that if in fact such a condition is put in place for this particular project, is there someone to make sure that the conditions are complied with?
So, Joe, can I ask you, do you have any response to this gentleman's question in regards to, I'll call it off-site parking?
Sure. In terms of parking requirements for the downtown, commercial properties aren't required to have parking available on site downtown. That's part of our zoning code. The residential requirement for downtown units is reduced versus the rest of the city. They're only required to have one space per unit. In this case, the petitioner is offering to have 2 spaces rented out in the garage where they're required to only have 1. In terms of on-street parking, that's public way, so it's open to anybody, whether they're going to commercial space or if they happen to live in the area. They looking to drop off groceries or what have you, or have visitors coming in, they are welcome to park at the metered spaces within downtown. In terms of conditions, one objective of part of the city's reorganization with the planning department and inspectional services was to get better follow-up on conditions the boards were placing. Before the 2 entities were separated, they weren't even in the same building, so that made communication more challenging. Now that the 2 entities are one, so it has made enforcement of conditions from boards, planning board, zoning board, conservation commission, more easily enforced. So when a project like the one that was on first tonight, that was from 2007, there was some time to review and actually find that these conditions were outstanding.
Thank you. Hopefully that answers your question, sir. It does for me, but hopefully it does for you.
Well, again, Mr. Chairman, I'm just concerned that in the future, of course, we can't predict the future. However, maybe Attorney Gallagher decides him and his wife 5 years down the road to lease that residential unit out to 5 kids from Middlesex Community College. So I would just be concerned that if there are going to be, if it is going to be approved, that there would be conditions in place related to parking, as well as to make sure that the mill rate stays at the commercial rate instead of being reduced to a residential rate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yep. Okay, that portion of public hearing is closed. I'd like to open it up to the board. Dennis.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Mason and one follow-up for Attorney Gallagher. By the way, this is a gorgeous little project you've got here, and it's great to learn the history of it, that it was this gaslight model kind of residence. You issued a number of rendered elevations here, and I was just wondering if you've honed in on a particular one that you're favoring here for the renovation.
We have and we are. I'm sorry, my name is Jay Mason, 77 Tyler Park. I'm here as ACS, Architectural Consulting Services. Yeah, we have, I think, decided to pursue something with a smaller punched opening that not only provides privacy but enhances the thermal aspect of that entry space. But whatever decision gets made, and it hasn't quite been made with Michael and Linda at this point, it will also be carefully coordinated with Steve Stoll or Chuck Parrott in collaboration as normal with a historic kind of facade.
Are you proposing a porch element that's being added, or is that is a new addition? Okay. All right.
And that's not something that has been decided upon as well. We wanted to throw out the full range of possibilities.
Okay. Well, I have just one follow-up question for Attorney Gallagher. If I understand the property comes with this beautiful little pocket kind of park area in the front that looks wonderful on that street, and I would love to see that preserved. So my fear as a resident is that it turns into pavement for parking, which would be a shame, I think. So I was wondering if we'd be open to some kind of condition that this would remain as a green space.
Do you mean the garden right in front?
Absolutely.
Oh, I have no problem with that. My wife has already designed it in her own mind. We've actually, my brother's an architect down in Florida and has sent us a number of renderings from a recent visit to Charleston, South Carolina, where, as you know, a lot of times you have residences right on the street.
Right.
And how do you support privacy and so on? So I don't have any problem with that kind of thing. We have taken great pains to restore the building to the way it was in 1859, even down to the colors. Italianate colors. I didn't know what Italianate was until a year and a half ago, and Steve Stoll asked us to do it, and we did it. And we just restored the dormers on the building. It's a fantastic building. I hope you have a chance to come by at some point. Lowell's Gaslight Building was one of the first in the country. That gaslight, the company that was chartered in 1847. The same year that Detroit and Chicago chartered their gaslight companies. Lowell really was the Silicon Valley of the mid-19th century, as we all like to say. But no, there's no threat of that. There's a beautiful iron fence right there now. We're going to keep that. We're going to do everything we can to enhance that. For our own privacy purposes, we want to expand it and enlarge it, or whatever the term may be. And so we hope to make it a really nice complement to the area, so that juxtaposed between Life Alive on one side and the law firm in the other is what really looks like a cottage in downtown Lowell, and it becomes a nice, quiet, almost pastoral space in the middle of downtown.
I seem to remember it as a doctor's office, maybe when I was at the Y back in the day when the Y was across the street.
That's exactly right. It was a dentist's office, it was a doctor's office, it became a law firm at some point, and for the last number of years it was an art supply store. But as a matter of fact, the proprietors of the museum lived in the second floor of the Gaslight Building, so there's a history of residential use in that same space.
Well, thank you. I wish you a lot of luck with it.
Thank you
nice
very
job.
much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Kevin?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think we're seeing that more and more commercial spaces are turning into residences downtown. I'm not opposed to it. I think this is a beautiful site. I think the downtown will be lucky to have you guys as residents of their downtown. I think you're perfect applicants for that situation. So I wish you the best of luck with it. I think it's a great street. And I agree with Dennis. I've sat outside having sandwiches from Life Alive, and in the springtime, it's beautiful out there with the vegetation and stuff. So good luck with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Corey?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I had the luxury of taking an official tour of the Gaslight Building itself and the attached cottage, and it was something else. I was very, very impressed, and especially the work and detail that Mr. Gallagher used on the Gaslight Building. I urge my colleagues, if you're ever in the neighborhood, please stop in. It's well worth viewing. And I have no doubt that kind of work will carry over to this cottage. I just have the utmost confidence in Mr. Gallagher, so that's not an issue. I'm currently a neighbor with Mr. Gallagher, and I just want to echo to my colleagues that he's a very responsible and always has a willingness to cooperate with his neighbors, and he understands that he's moving into a downtown and there's a little bit more bustle, and it's a new way of life, so to speak. But under normal conditions, first floor, I'd be adamant on retail only. But this is an exception to the rule. It appears it was, I'm sure, residential somewhere along the lines, and a retail location would have difficulty at this location. I'm pretty convinced of that. So. But to answer the abutter's concern, Mike, this is a rather small unit. Is it one bedroom anyway? Is it even two?
Probably just one bedroom.
Okay.
It's only about 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, okay.
So it's almost enforced, just the two of us to a large extent.
Okay.
So there will only be at any given time, absent an instance where there might be some guests or what have you, two people and my wife works as a nurse. She's gone all day long, and she'll be in the garage afterwards. I'm there, and you often see me right in the back, and I'll be at one or two places at night. The city does a phenomenal job in making sure that people don't pay their parking fees or ticketed, that the meter maid is there almost, it seems like, around the clock. So I certainly respect the gentleman's concern about parking, I do, but I never park in the street, and my wife never parks in the street unless she comes down after hours. So I certainly appreciate that. If we're able to move down there, we also are concerned about the parking, but I just don't anticipate that it'll be a problem because we'll make use of the garage. Right now, we have about 18 or 20 employees. Right now, about 10, 12, 15 of them park in the garage anyway. So it's not going to really be a change for us.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to answer the abutter's concern. I mean, I doubt it's too small. It's not going to end up a frat house by any word of the, I'm sure you won't allow that to happen, Mr. Gallagher, so. I do support it. I think it's great. I think when the gardens are complete, you're really going to have a lovely little showcase in downtown Lowell, so I'm pleased with it. I do support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Corey. Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also excited about this project. It's going to be a really great, I think, transition for that cottage to be residential. So I actually do support it. I did share, I actually appreciate the concern that the neighbor brought up, and I already know that the parking issue is already fixed because you will be you'll be renting a space in the garages. But I do have a concern regarding if you do move out, who replaces you? Would it return back to commercial space? It probably would not. So if other tenants move in there, then the parking would still be an issue. There's no guarantee that they would take rent a parking spot. So I was just curious if this, I guess a question to my fellow board members and possibly to Joe, has there been any conditions for similar projects like this downtown for residential in terms of parking? And is it something we can condition here?
With any residential unit downtown, when somebody moves out, whatever garage that space was leased, the lease is to pass on to the next tenant.
Gotcha.
So if there's 2 spaces being leased out, any future tenant of that building would be taking on at least 1. I mean, I guess the board could condition that they had to lease the second as well. If the applicant is going to be leasing 2 now, it could be something the board could condition.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I would approve this. I would recommend thinking about a condition on parking. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Van?
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So, Joe, a couple of things. In regards to Melissa's comment about parking and if this is going to turn to residential and if something happens in the future, we normally don't ask for a condition around change of ownership, do we?
Not typically. The board can limit a special permit to an owner, can't with a variance, but it can with a special permit.
Right, and this is a special permit before us, so.
Correct.
We shouldn't be, it's my understanding, based on anything else we've ever done downtown, or in a case like this, we wouldn't be conditioning anything on ownership, is that correct? In regards to a special permit?
You could. It's up to the board if you wanted to condition it such that the special permit expired if and when Mr. Gallagher no longer owns the property. That is an option for the board if you so chose. But you don't have to condition it as such.
So as a follow-on to that, the gentleman's comment about commercial and residential, when we've done any project that's come before us for downtown, that's, I'll say, generally they've been a mill building or multi-structure that calls out for parking. Are they automatically converted into residential as far as the city's concerned, or do they stay commercially based? I'm trying to understand. I believe I understand what he's asking, but I thought I would ask you the question. And so his comment is, the present use is under a commercial?
Correct.
Okay. So if it changes to residential, doesn't it carry as residential?
I would assume so. I'm not totally
Yeah,
sure
so
how
that
the
has
tax
nothing
rate
to do
works.
with this board as far as determining something like that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the taxes are typically determined by the treasurer's,
Yeah, well, that would, I would
Designated.
think, based on use. That has nothing to do with this board.
right.
I just want to make sure you understand that, sir. That's why I'm asking the question.
But, Mr. Chairman, if I may interrupt just for a second, I mean, many of the projects we approved on this board downtown were all commercial at one time or another that are now residential, so we couldn't prejudice against this petition by no means. So that's the point I'd like to make.
Yeah.
At one time or another, they were all commercial.
Yep. Okay, well, I just want to address this gentleman who came down. And as far as, like I stated, unless there's board members that want to, are in favor of it, regarding the change of ownership, I don't see that as a condition item, but if there's anybody else that believes we need that, I know you mentioned it, Melissa, but
I'm sorry, can you explain that? Maybe I'm not understanding. When you're saying not to put a condition, or?
not to condition. I don't believe we need to condition anything like that as a carry forward, you know. We're going to condition the special permit based on, if something was to change with ownership, they almost have to notify us. I don't believe we need to do that. Okay. Okay, so I believe there were two conditions, but the second one, Dennis, you asked about the parking. And Joe, the DPD, and I think I already mentioned this around historical board, has go for historical board, but it also talks to the structure and also landscaping. Now, does that automatically assume that the landscaping stays in place and it would go before historical, so no parking would ever be on that site?
Right, so any changes to the exterior, whether they be to the facade or to any landscaping that's on the outside, it has to be reviewed and approved by the historic board.
Okay.
Whether they approved any parking, I highly doubt that would happen. But it would have to obtain some level of review by the historic board.
So does the landscaping have to meet certain criteria to fall under historic? Okay.
Yes, correct.
So Dennis's comment about not having any parking there, I believe if I follow the sheet of music, you're saying we could condition that, that there is no parking. Okay. Ms. Gallagher, you have any issue if we condition that there'll be no parking on the current landscaped area?
Absolutely not.
Okay, I believe you said that.
I might put a bike there on occasion, but aside from that, absolutely not.
Four-wheel or two-wheel? Three-wheel probably, right? Yeah. Okay. Do you have both the conditions?
Looking at two conditions, Mr. Chairman? Yep, I believe so.
Okay, so could I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the following conditions, that the petitioner obtain approval from the Historic Board. And second, there will be no parking on current landscaped area in the future.
Second.
Yep. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Ahern,
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Bailey,
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Belanger,
Approve with conditions.
Ms. Carino,
Approve with conditions.
Mr. McCarthy.
Approved with conditions.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Gallagher, you've been approved. Wish you the best. Wish you the best of luck. Yep, thank you.
Anxious as you two, don't worry.
Joe, thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, next matter of business is under other business. This is the minutes for approval from November 15, 2012. Just as a note of clarification, I talked to Joe this afternoon and made just some slight modifications to the minutes, which I believe you updated, Joe. Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
And any other comments from anybody regarding the minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November the 15th, 2012?
Yes.
I'll
Have a
second, I'll second that.
Okay. Have a roll call, please.
Mr. Hearn.
Approve.
Mr. Bailey.
Approved.
Mr. Belanger.
Approve.
Ms. Carino.
Approve.
Mr. McCarthy.
Approve.
Okay. Any other matters? So next meeting for this board, Joe, will be
January 14th,
January 14th.
so about a month
Wow.
away.
Big month off, huh?
Yeah, 5 weeks.
Wow. 5 weeks. We're going to see you back, Melissa?
Take it.
Okay, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Have a good evening.